I'm Josh.
And I'm Jen. Welcome to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast.
Each episode brings biblical wisdom and practical conversations on parenting, marriage, and family. And we discuss how to disciple the next generation with a biblical worldview.
Whether you're raising children, shepherding a church, or longing to build a legacy of faith in your home, this podcast is for you.
Join us as we explore how to shape hearts, homes, and churches around the gospel, one conversation at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast. Today we're talking about raising kids who love the church. It's such a fun topic. Can't wait to dive into it. But before we get started, if you are a regular listener of the podcast, we would love it if you would leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere out there, there's so many platforms. Go ahead, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us out a lot, and it helps us to continue to make great episodes like today's episode. So let's get into it. Josh Mulvihill, Dr. Josh Mulvihill, we're chatting about the church. What was your church like growing up?
Well, first of all, happy anniversary, Jen.
Thank you. It's our anniversary.
26 years.
26 years.
And we get to spend that recording a few episodes on the podcast.
Couples
Yay.
who stay together, podcast together.
That's right.
Yes.
Happy anniversary. Love
Happy
you.
anniversary.
Okay, what was the question? What did my involvement with church
Yeah, what was it like?
growing up? What was it like?
Did you love your church growing up?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, but mostly for me, it was, as a kid, it was involvement with corporate worship. I didn't really go to Sunday school until my teen years. And we moved enough times that I think it was hard for me to get really connected relationships because that was disruptive.
Yeah.
And so, but we were every weekers.
Wow.
We did not miss unless it was like the end of the world.
Wow.
We were very, very consistent. So that was good. How about you?
I loved our church growing up. We had a really great church we were involved with when I was younger. And we were super involved. I was there, corporate worship and Sunday school, the double hours,
You're a super Christian.
I was a super Christian on paper because when my family moved, when I was in high school, then they never really found a new church. And so I went from being an every weeker to a never weeker. We didn't go for so many years. And my parents were I don't know, maybe this is common, but they'd listen to the sermons, or nowadays the equivalent would be listen online, join us online. Hey to everyone watching online, that. And so, yeah, I think that was a big shift, but I loved our church. I loved the church that I grew up in. Great memories, great relationships. I would say they were foundational for a lot of things. My piano teacher went to our church and all the things. So, yeah, I thought I
That
loved
was
it.
good. All right. Well, so we're talking about helping kids love the church because the reality is that a lot of kids don't.
Yep.
Currently, they don't love the church, their experience, or they grow up and there's a lot of well-established research from a lot of reputable studies that anywhere from about 60 to 80% of young people end up walking away from the church as young adults.
Same.
And sometimes they come back, but often they never do.
Mhm.
And we think that outcome is avoidable
Mhm.
for every single one of our kids. We think it's possible to raise all of our kids to love the church, not only now, but also in their adult years, that they have such a wonderful experience, and which is what we want for our kids. When they
Yeah.
think of church, what are the emotions, what are the feelings, the thoughts that come to mind? And we want them to be just genuinely positive. And
Mhm.
so there are things we can do to help towards that outcome.
Yeah.
We want them to value it in a way that they see it as essential. And of course, when they get to be adults themselves and they go off to college and they have to find their own church,
Yeah.
or they're just out of our house, we really want them to have the conviction that they Sunday morning, they are going to go to church, love its people, and
Mhm.
so, how do we get there? How do
Yep.
we do that? So, we're just gonna share a number of principles that we have embraced that have helped our kids get to a place where they currently love the church. And now that
Yep.
we have one that'll be out of the house in
11 days. No,
countdown
not even 11 days. We're on the wedding count. This will air after the wedding, but we are right now in the, like,
9
wedding home stretch,
days.
9
Yeah,
days.
9 days. So be out of the house in 9 days. And we're confident he'll continue to
Oh,
be
yeah.
he's in leadership at his church. He leads worship on Sunday morning. And so it literally wouldn't happen without him. So,
No.
so that's good. Um, so first principle is choose to attend church one time. And by that, we mean you literally have made the choice as a family that every Sunday,
Yep.
52 weeks a year, every year you're going to be at church.
Yep.
It's not something that gets discussed each week. Saturday night, are we going? Are we not going?
Yep.
You don't need to explain it to your children like this
Mhm.
is why we're going to church. You're actually going to need to do the opposite. If you
Yeah.
decide not to go to church,
Here's why, folks.
here's why we're not going. Your kids would be like, "What? We're not going to?"
That's
Because
our kids. What?
it's literally like it's like if we weren't eating dinner on one night,
Yeah.
your kids would be like, "What? What's going on
Why
here?"
isn't mom cooking?
Yeah. It's just literally what we do every single Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And so if that's not the case, then it's literally like this ongoing debate, conversation, you know, explanation, and
Mhm.
it doesn't happen. So the encouragement here is just make it a non-negotiable part of your family schedule. And for us, this meant when our kids were younger, we had conversations with them along the scheduling line of things to let them know that we weren't going to prioritize sports, that we weren't when they got a
Mhm.
little older. And now three of our five work outside of the home.
Yep, they have
Uh,
jobs.
They have jobs. So if they get to that point, we literally have said, Sunday morning is off limits for sports, for
Yep.
work, for other things. That means if there are conflicts in this area, it's an automatic no. And
Yeah.
so what that has meant is, that, as they're looking at things to be involved with, if that spills over into Sunday morning, they know, well, this one's not even a possibility.
Yep.
So that's helped a lot of difficult or challenging conversations. And of course, we're not legalistic about this.
No.
That we like everybody, we miss church once in a while, um, but it's for one-time things, and it's pretty rare,
Yeah.
and so, um, the bulk of Sundays, though, will be there like you missed. We just had a calf, and the calf,
Our cow had a calf. He's so cute.
and we needed the mom just we need to milk that cow, otherwise, we have potential problems with mastitis for the cow, or actually had a calf that died 2
2
years
years ago.
ago because we didn't milk that mother cow, the same mom, enough, and the baby got scours, and basically she drank milk to death because our one cow this is more than anybody wants to know,
Yeah,
I realize.
this is so much TMI on the
Too
cow.
much information, but this cow produces like 5 gallons per milking, and
That's it
so
once a day.
once a
She'll
day.
give us, like,
So,
8 gallons a day.
anyways, not to be legalistic, but Jen missed a Sunday to be home to milk the cow just so our calf wouldn't die.
Otherwise, I'm up at, like, 4
For
AM.
yeah, it's just too much. So it's rare times like that
Yeah.
that we will miss a Sunday. And if that ever happens for us, we tune in online, which I appreciate that opportunity.
I really appreciate that.
But I will say that's a temptation for a lot of people today
Mhm.
to watch a service that is streamed, and it should never be a
No.
regular replacement for in-person worship attendance. I think it's a helpful thing when that rare time you're gone, you can tune in.
Mhm.
Sometimes when I'll be traveling and I'm not able to be at a church on a Sunday morning, I will tune in, pull it up on my phone, on Facebook. You can watch it live wherever you are, which is great. But choose to attend church one
Yeah.
time. Make that a priority for your
And I
family.
think that that has trickled over into Wednesday nights also for us too, right? Like Wednesday nights have become the routine. It was Awana when the kids were little, and we do the man co and the woman co
Yeah.
now. And I think a lot of those routines that we set when the kids were little, they have now like made a part of their routines as they're older. Because you're right, with sports, especially on the Wednesday night thing, it does creep in, and our kids have been really excited to just say, "No, no, no, nothing's happening on Wednesday nights," also. So, I think our kids do love our church, but yeah, we've made that decision one time, and it all kinda trickles over.
Yep. And now
Yeah.
it's just a set
Now it's
schedule.
just the set schedule.
Yep.
Okay. The next one is to help children get to know the pastors and the leaders at your church. Now, if you attend a small church, that might be easier for you. But if you attend, a medium to large size church, even if you're at a mega church, that takes quite a bit of intentionality. There was like a Babylon Bee. I don't know, is Babylon Bee considered an article or like a
No,
meme?
yeah, that
It's
would be
like a
more like this is
meme.
satire.
Yeah, it's satire, right, right,
Yeah.
right, but they posted this thing last week that was like, mega church hosts like a competition or something. Oh, they were doing a giveaway where, like, one lucky contestant gets to meet the senior pastor, and we, like, laughed really hard at that because we do go to a really large church, and we have heard from families that'll be like, "Have you ever met him?" Like, the senior pastor. And, like, we kind of joke about that, because he's, like, super warm and, like, easy to, pin down, I think, but, yeah, so I think one thing you can do is just help your kids get to know the pastors and the leaders of your church. So, for us, that's looked like just really intentionally, getting to know them. At our church, when our kids were little, they all took notes, and then in corporate worship, they would take notes, and then, I would walk them down to our senior pastor and have our kids, like, give him their notes that they took, and that kind of, like, created some camaraderie, I think on both ends because he knew then that our kids were there and listening and taking notes, but then the kids knew that because this was the routine that they were gonna be like, "Ooh, yeah, Pastor Troy is gonna, like, look at my notes." And so they loved that. That was kind of fun back and forth. And we've also, especially with, like, our children's ministry leaders over the years, just having people out to our house and being intentional just to, like, get to know them on a personal level and, letting them be a part of our kids' lives. So, yeah, so I don't know what that looks like for your family. And it does take a level of intentionality. So many things do. But your kids are going to remember those relationships, and they do make a huge difference in the life of your family. We want to take a break and thank our sponsor, Renew a Nation. If you've benefited from the Gospel Shaped Family podcast, consider hopping online and making a tax-deductible donation at renewanation.org today. Your generous donations make this podcast possible and further our work to help children develop a biblical worldview. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, you can support us by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen. This helps us grow and reach more families with a biblical worldview. Now back to the show.
Third one for us was to be mindful of how we talk about the church in front of our children. There are always things at a church that we could complain about, that we could criticize, that is
Mhm.
frustrating. We could, can attack people verbally. Just generally speaking poorly of any aspect of the church, and especially if this happens on a repetitive nature,
Yeah,
it begins to shape the perspective of children about the church, and specifically about the church we're at, but about the church in general.
yeah,
And so, if we've ever had those kinds of conversations, we've tried to save those behind closed doors as much as possible, especially when kids are little. Once they get older, now that our kids are teens and some, young adults, they're more perceptive and able to see
they're
things
so
themselves.
perceptive.
So when they bring things up or we talk through like song selection choice or um,
Style.
staffing
Yeah.
decisions, just things that begin to become helpful from a discernment standpoint.
Yeah.
That is different as our kids get older. But in general, we wanted to speak positively in public and hold
Mhm.
negative conversations for private.
Mhm.
And I just think scripturally, as we think about what the Bible says about the church is the bride of Christ.
Mhm.
And so, if anybody would speak poorly of you, my bride, to me or about you in my presence, that'd be like, just think about God with his bride and how we want to talk about the church, the bride of Christ, just in general. And then of course with our kids. And we want to do that respectfully. We want to do that in an honoring way. And we just don't want to shape their perspective negatively. And it's so easy to do.
Mhm.
You could leave and there's stuff we could say every Sunday if we wanted to, if we wanted to get nitpicky about stuff. So just be mindful of that with your kids.
Yep, that's great. Next one, we kinda touched on this, but value your church enough that it disrupts your routine. And so, every family has their own routine, every family has their stuff, but let church disrupt it. So again, it's being there on Sunday mornings, even if, grandma wants to invite you to brunch at the country club. Nope, nope, nope. We have church.
What about well, I was thinking specifically here with, like, little kids with naps, especially, like, some that a lot of little kids take naps
Morning
twice
naps,
morning
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, but that's still doable with church, so no matter what that routine is, whether it's nap time or yeah, I mean, very specifically, yeah. So your kids are gonna need to take morning naps when they're little, and there's way to work around that, bring your stroller and wear your baby and allow your wonderful, nursery workers, if you decide to go that route, let them snuggle your children. I mean, we've successfully raised all 5 of our children, bringing them to church every Sunday. Through nap season, you can do it, and really, I mean, if you're in a especially for ladies, like, all the ladies go to morning Bible study, just do it. Just bring your kids. You might have longer afternoon naps, or you might have all the things, but it's worth, the time to disrupt routine.
Disrupt routine, yeah. The next one that we've done is we've prioritized children in corporate worship. If you've listened for any length of time, you've heard us talk about this from time to time. We actually have a whole episode on this one. I think it was right at the beginning. I think it was about episode 5, specifically on how to
Mhm.
train children in corporate worship. So we can encourage you to tune into that. Um, but part of having kids value the church in general is they got to be part of the church in general.
Yeah.
And so um, if their whole experience of the church is primarily children's ministry or youth ministry, they're missing out on the broader church experience. And so we think there's a place for a nursery program,
Yeah.
for activities for younger children, for Sunday school. We're not anti those things, but we are corporate worship first,
Mhm.
and then age based programming second.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that means we have to make a choice. If we're only going to be at church for a single hour, we have to choose because we can't be at both places at the same time. So for our family, that has meant we prioritize children in corporate worship over all the rest. And then we try to be at 2 hours when our
Mhm.
schedule allows, which for us is most of the school
Most of the year,
year.
yeah.
And we adjust things a little bit in the summer as things adjust for our family. But we just think when children are about 5 years old, about kindergarten age, for our
Mhm.
family is when we moved them into corporate worship. We think they can sit quietly, they can pay attention, they can participate. Of course, they're going to understand at a kindergarten level, but they can glean a ton. And there's just a ton of value from learning to worship and being part of the broader congregation with everybody else from adults rather than children, and the value of hearing the sermon together and having that experience together as a family is super valuable. And
Mhm.
so that has been, the interesting thing with like children's and youth ministry, it it's always changing. The adults that are
That's
leading
true.
those classrooms, they're always changing. Even the what's done for those programs, it feels like at our church, it's like we can't go
It's
2
always different.
years
Yeah.
with the same thing. It's literally they just announced new changes again this year for literally the whole programming is different. And so what's the one thing that will remain constant with all of that, is corporate worship. It's that experience with a church. And so I remember I did both corporate worship and youth ministry, but I remember when our youth pastor, two of them left, it was like super disruptive for us because
Yeah.
that was such a huge part of my life and my church experience. And that will be for our kids as well if they've are engaged with children's or youth ministry, but it just doesn't have the same level of impact when
Yeah.
that's only a part of their church experience, not the totality
Yeah.
of it. And so prioritize children in corporate worship.
Yep. All right. Next is be committed to one church. So we've made it a priority to be members of just one church throughout our children's childhood. And no church is perfect. Every church will have its ups and downs, whether it's a change in the staff or like you said a youth pastor leaving or you don't love the programming or there's a million different things that you can nitpick about your church. But really being committed to one church is a wonderful gift that you can give your children. It provides stability, both in relationship, in teaching, and just gives wonderful continuity to all of family life. So, yeah, so we've made decisions also, like, for whether it's moving for work or we've moved out here to the farm, and there will always be decisions in life, but
Yeah,
one
we drew like a
a
40
radius.
minute radius around from our church and said
Yeah,
anything outside of that is
yeah,
takes us too far away from our
yeah.
church. So where we're at
We
now takes us 38 minutes to drive to our church.
door to
That was
door.
that was like the farthest about as far as we were
Yeah.
willing to
Yeah,
go.
but that
Yeah.
that those are decisions that we very consciously made that, wherever life takes us, we are committed to our church. And so yeah, that's been a great thing. So if you could stay committed to one church, you're really gonna see wonderful fruit that comes from your family.
Yep. And then the last one is just to teach your children what the Bible says about the church. This is, of course, the if you want to be like smart with all your friends, you can use the theological term for this, which is the doctrine of ecclesiology. And so, I
Fancy.
know, right? In the systematic theology world, there's only about I don't know the exact number, 10 or 12 kind of main doctrines like this, and the doctrine of the church is one of those. So it's literally that level of importance. They've built a whole systematic theology, put things under that category. There would be all kinds of stuff with there's whole denominations, in fact, around differences in ecclesiology
Uh-huh.
with the governance of church structure from independent to baptismal to Presbyterian.
Mhm.
You have the Presbyterian church has a very different governance than like we're at a Baptistic
Mhm.
church, and we're independent congregation. You vote as a congregation. Presbyterian church, they'll have a whole um, bishops and all of those that sometimes
Denominational
speak
things. Yeah.
into individual church structures and
Mm.
decisions. Sometimes that's actually helpful and sometimes it's not. It obviously um it I think sometimes it protects and sometimes it creates challenges. But those kinds of things, whole denominations built around baptism and communion, differences in decisions there. So these are good things to teach children about, and you could pick up really any systematic theology book, and there'll be a section on the
The
church,
church.
and helpful just to have that in mind as you're thinking about how to help children love the church. We want to teach them what the Bible says about that. And of course, Jesus established the church. This is the one organization that Jesus is the founder of, is the church.
Yeah.
Nothing will, Jesus says that nothing will destroy it. It will, he told Peter, I'm going to build the church on you. And it has continued to this day. So the church is obviously really critical. Christ found it. He loves it. It's his bride. He calls us to be a part of that. It should be something that's just a regular part of our family life. And hopefully your kids grow up to love it and continue when they're adults.
Yes.
All right. So we are switching to a different segment. We are going to do Ask
Ask Josh
Josh and Jen.
Ask Josh or Josh.
I was going to ask Dr. No. All right, you got the first. We got two questions. We'll
We
keep
have
them
two
quick.
questions. Okay, first one. My son is 6. So cute. I volunteer and I teach his Sunday school class on Sunday mornings. Is it better for him to attend Sunday school or should he be in corporate church at his age? Or should we mix it up? We
What
kind of
say
already
what
talked about
say
that.
you, Jen?
First priority is always corporate worship, especially when your kids get to be around. We always say that 5-year-old range. So at 6, my guess is he's probably ready. But yeah, for sure, make corporate worship the priority. And bring him in, make it exciting, do all those things. But then yes, also, I think it's good for moms and dads to be serving in Sunday school. If your kids are in attending Sunday school for that extra hour, definitely be there with them. Definitely build into your church's Christian education, be building into your children's leaders. These are very influential roles. And so I would say yes and yes, do both.
Double whammy. All right. Second question, what expectations did you set and which strategies did you use to help your kids under 6, another one 6, under 6 engage in corporate
Understood.
worship? A couple strategies. We put the newest, youngest corporate worship trainee next to Jen or I, right next to us, so we could kind of just help them.
Hmm.
We had conversations coming into it about what our expectations were to sit quietly, calmly, be engaged.
Yeah.
We would give them tools, not toys.
Mhm.
So, notebook, pen. We're happy to have them scribbling, drawing, writing, because sometimes that helps kids
Yeah.
pay attention. But we would not let them use screens because those become a
So
distraction.
distracting.
We always give our kids, we've given them a sucker so that when the sermon starts, they can open that and pop it in. And we think that helps them pay attention for 5 more minutes, 10
Mhm.
more minutes. Um, those are the kinds of things we have done. And and if some kids take a little bit longer than this age range, 5, 6, to kind of learn just it's kind of a developed skill to be able to sit still for a 30-minute sermon, 40-minute sermon, but a whole hour in church. But generally, they should be able to do that relatively quickly. And
Yeah.
if they know what they are to do and they don't, we think that becomes a discipline issue
Yeah.
that children are just simply not willing to. And then that moves into a discipline issue, not a discipleship issue, which
Mhm.
technically they're one and the same. But and I will mention that episode I mentioned earlier. We get into this in great depth. If you want to listen to
Yeah.
that, you can kind of probably glean quite a bit more.
Even now that the kids are older, our youngest is 11 and we all go to corporate worship on Sundays. We still like strategically space them out a little bit.
Yeah,
We'll still space them out a little bit. I still always buy, well, I don't buy suckers, but gum,
you use gum now. Yeah,
gum and mints sometimes. Sometimes mints, but mostly gum. I always keep a stash of pens in my purse and an extra notebook. So, even if your kids are a little older, still keep thinking about it because, I mean, who doesn't like a fresh stick of gum? right on Sunday morning. I think that's fun stuff. So still think about this for your older kids. Like what keeps things enjoyable for them? What keeps them engaged? Just because you're like 11 doesn't mean you don't get any like special treatment from mom and dad on Sunday
They get
mornings.
fun pens and
They get fun
notebooks and
pens and
yeah.
all the fun stuff. So, yeah, so keep that in mind. Even if your kids are a little older, what can make Sunday morning special for them? And then check that box.
It's great. All right. That does it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. We're honored to partner with Garrett and Yvette Hampton, and today I want to point you to their podcast, Schoolhouse Rocked. Each episode will help you disciple your children and capture a biblical vision for education. If you're a home educator or you've even thought about home educating your children, this podcast is for you. Their guests have incredible expertise and powerful testimonies. We've been great friends for many years, and I encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Schoolhouse Rocked is working hard to bring biblical truth to your family. You can find them on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast. Please share this episode and give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts.